So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother Ben. A fella Baldy.
Yeah, there's two good-looking fellas on the show
See,
today.
Baldy's the best. We're all going to get there one way or the other.
Yeah.
Embrace it now.
Exactly. You're my third guest on the show, and I've called it Interview the Expat Bali edition because, as I was saying to Mark, you know Mark Chayton from CommuneX? Got that? Yeah.
Seaton. Yeah. With him last night.
Yeah, he was my first. And I was saying to him how I've been in Bali now, maybe 1 year. And this was brought on because I was inspired to interview more typically like entrepreneurs, right? Because in my perception, there's expats living here, but they're either within hospitality, so they're employed within hospitality and stuff, or you're entrepreneurial. So, I was inspired to get you on because, we've run into each other's paths a couple of times, and you're a big personality in my mind. So I'm like, I know he's got a story. You've got your own book. Yeah. And then I saw you also on another friend's show, which was Rhonda and Brian, or Rhonda.
Yeah.
So, so we'll kind of take the listeners on a bit of a journey. Again, not only as a bit for more entertainment, but it's also the journey of entrepreneurship and then like why people end up in Bali and like what they're doing here and kind of all their journey ups and downs, right? So with that said, again, thanks for being on the show. So kind of let's go back to, only because I know you do have quite a deep story. So going all the way back to how you even started out, I was going to say it's like how go back to the inception of life.
Yeah, we can go there too.
Yeah. So like going back to, I believe you're an orphan, right? So starting back in that journey and how that's kind of shaped your life and the experiences you've had on the way. So let's start with your growing up in an orphanage.
Cool. So my parents came from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And independently, actually, they met in London, and they had like a fatal attraction. Is probably what I'd refer to it as. If you remember that film with Michael Douglas and the other one, and it's clear they weren't going to be together. Yeah. And we had there was my elder brother, there was me, there was my elder sister as well. So what ended up happening is my elder sister and I ended up growing up in two children's homes in London. So from the age of 6 months to the age of 18. So 6 months to the age of 18 years. So 17 odd years.
Wow.
And and I mean, but the thing is that you don't know what you don't know. You only know what you know. So it's not that like I had a way to compare myself to other people and say, well, they're growing up like this. Why am I growing up like that? It didn't really happen. But so I guess in reference to where we're going with this, the things I'd pull out of there, because there's so many things I could pull out, is that, is the power of community and the power of collaboration and the power of learning lessons either way. So I'll go into a little bit more detail. But they're the three things I'll touch upon. So growing up in the children's homes, I was always the youngest one, 6 months of age, to 18 as I mentioned. And so there were 18 kids at any one time in the children's home. Is that the limit?
There was only like 18.
Correct. And so when you reach the age of 17, 18, you'd leave. You'd be by yourself. You'd be out of the care system. So going in from 6 months to I had 18 years, 17 years of seeing people come in and come out, come in and come out, come in and come out. So I would have seen hundreds of people probably. And in there, all sorts of different people from all sorts of backgrounds. Those who were able to adjust to life in the children's home, those who weren't able to. Those from really seriously impaired backgrounds and those from other backgrounds. So I met gangsters, thugs, rich people, poor people, all the colors of the rainbow, from red, like name it, like Indonesian, German, Russian, French, English, Spanish, Mauritian, African, Jamaican, English, the list goes on, Indian, of all sorts of different persuasions. So, and I was bullied, but then I used to bully, I had so many different lessons. I had people teach me how to play tennis, people teach me how to play basketball, teach me how to play football. I had fights every other weekend with one of the other guys who's a skinhead. If you don't realize I'm a tall, I'm like 6'2", 6'4" and black guy.
For those who are watching, there's a lot of legs under the table.
For those who are not watching, oh yeah, you know. So we were made to fight. So you know, but as a kid, you know, for the first 14 years, I was the only black kid at school. So I thought that I was white. I lived by Caucasian standards, from the way that I judge beauty, from the way that I interact with people, from the way that I spoke.
Wow.
Right? Even though at home was pejoratively black, right? Interesting. So at home, I used to spend time early on, very much an introvert, right? So I'll be at home.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
You've certainly come out of your shell then.
Yeah. And I'll tell you how that happened.
Yeah.
So I used to sit around with a mirror up to my face and pull apart. My nose is too wide. My lips are too big.
Wow.
My head's too pointy. All this stuff. Skin's too black. Maybe not that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I was seriously depressed and impaired. And
what age range was this?
This was like I became aware of it between 6 and 12.
Yeah.
That was really the awareness, but it's happened before then. And so that was my life at home. And at school, because I was really good at sport, I was put up on a pedestal, right? So, and being really good at sport, it's hard to be an introvert when you're on a pedestal, right? So then I engaged this other part of me that I would call an actor for the sake of argument, which was the extrovert, which is what you see now, right? So, but I'm still an introverted extrovert, or an extroverted introvert, up to you how you want to see it. But basically, you know, like what I began to see was that the people that I was around, and it came together on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah. Sunday afternoon, 18 kids in the background in the back garden playing football, no problem. But it wasn't that. It was the 20 or 30 or 40 other people from the local community, which were all different colours of the rainbow, different spectrums of socioeconomics, different spectrums of intelligence, or whether they even finished school, would all gather around in the back garden. So we'd have a situation where people wouldn't worry about, you know, the color of their skin, the money in their pocket, their background, their ethnicity, their way of seeing the world. It would all come together around this event that would go on for the whole afternoon. And that shaped the rest of my life, because what I realized was that we are different, but on many levels we're actually the same. You know, and so what I did, you know, later on, which I'll get to in a second, was combine all of that into an understanding of what my purpose is in life, which is about bringing people together from different backgrounds, ideologies, around things that we can all relate, and create platforms and whole spaces for people to evolve, to gain insights about themselves and others and grow. Right, that's my purpose. And you know, the funny thing is that in my background are people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. They're all part of my family tree. They're all Jamaican Maroons. Oh yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah. So me wanting to be Secretary General of the UN from the age of about 8 or 9, you know, it all makes sense, right? So I'm just giving you a few little breadcrumbs. So how this all comes together, you know, in the journey is that, you know, all of those experiences taught me something, you know, and I learned from everyone, because the introverted part of me was able to sit back and actually see, when you make an action, what is the reaction? And then able to ask myself, do I want to take that action? Because it's likely I might face that reaction, right? So it gave me this ability. It's like cause and effect,
you know?
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely. So it gave me this ability to see clearly, to analyze, you know, other people, and really to analyze myself. So what ended up happening is that then, you know, the sport, I ended up playing basketball for England. I ended up, you know, playing high levels in all other sports, football, tennis, rugby. I was very gifted, but I worked hard and I was angry. So my anger was channeled into playing sport and perfecting it, not perfecting, but mastering it. So I'm a follower of mastery. Mastery is about getting better every day, about pursuing stuff and getting better every day. And then that quickly led on to traveling around Europe, skiing, modeling, you know, in Milan, you know, I worked with Madonna. I worked with the supermodels, Naomi Campbell, Evangelista Herzegovina, Christy Turlington. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just throw them out there.
We'll get back to that. And then I worked on TV, became like a minor celebrity in Italy. Then I moved to Australia, started again from zero, but I'm quickly able to adapt, create networks, create communities. I got those abilities and those skills. And then ended up running a business voted number 3 in the world. You know, learned to speak Italian, Traveled, created large events from people from 5 people to like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people. I'm working on an event now that's tens of thousands of people, right? So I have lived with, probably the most famous people in the world to the most depressed people in the world. And I've coached all of them, from the most depressed to the most famous, right? So I've got a really good handle on creating community and a really good handle on what makes us human and a really good handle on empathy. And empathy gives me the ability to see anyone for who they are. And to relate to that and to bring that in such a way that it brings it together with someone else who apparently is on an opposite viewpoint, but I can bring them together around things that they really can both relate to, and that's where
find a middle ground.
And that's where the entrepreneurism comes in that I'm sure we'll touch upon later. But you had a question you wanted to stop me.
So so if we take it back to so 18 rolls around. And you're like, okay, well, I've got to fly the nest, so to speak. What's the where did you head then? So obviously now your purpose more around connecting with people, bringing people together, coaching. A few other things that you do we'll get into a bit later. But were you that consciously aware back then that that's what you wanted to make a life out of, or you just knew that you enjoyed that aspect of bringing people together?
Wasn't really aware of it. Again, it just depends where I was. So was I an introvert? Was I an extrovert? Right. It just depends. So
so leaving 18, you obviously you finished high school, or and where did you hey, this is where I'll first try and go into? Is it you were playing sports and you were playing that at a professional level, or you were doing what was the first career choice that you happened to fall into?
Windsurfing instructor.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how'd you get into that?
Summer at school, get a summer job.
Yeah.
And I've always loved windsurfing. And so as a reservoir. And
do you do it here? Windsurfing?
No, I haven't windsurfed for years.
Oh right.
And miss it actually.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that I really enjoyed. Outside of playing sport, that was the first thing that I really enjoyed. Outside of biology, I really enjoyed biology as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's funny things. They're defining moments in all of our lives, right? And one defining moment for me was in history, and it was 12 years of age, and we're studying the 100 Years' War, the one in the Middle East. There are many 100 Years' Wars around the world.
Yeah.
Some which are going for a lot longer than 100 years.
Yeah.
And this particular war, a kid in the back puts his hand up. Miss, yes. 100 Years' War, yes. Can't be the same people fighting, can it? And that hung with me. I didn't understand it, but it hung with me. And obviously later
generation.
Later on, then I became understanding of the theta brainwave state. We're very suggestible. We're like a mimicker from the age of 0 to 7. The theta brainwave state, we call it. You're a sponge. And again, it's what you and it rolls on, right? So ultimately, the 100 Years' War is perpetuated by parents passing it down to their offspring. 100%. Hate this person because of the color of their skin. Hate this person because of the money in their pocket. Hate this person because of their background or religiosity. Hate this person because they've got no hair. Right? Whatever it might be. And that was something which really had a massive impact on me from the age of around 18, 19, when I failed a whole bunch of exams and had to retake them. I went to a college that was the opposite. So school was pejoratively white, and I went to college and it was pejoratively black. And I was I had a culture shock, huge culture shock. What the heck?
Yeah. So this is actually very interesting. Is a small tangent here.
Yeah.
So you grew up in an orphanage until 18, and you experienced and you're surrounded by people of all races, colors, ethnicities, right? And So give me your perspective or your thoughts around this whole George Floyd thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's you didn't grow up in the obviously I grew up with my family in white neighborhoods or whatever, but you didn't grow up in the I don't know what you call it, the typical or the cliche, whether it's like gang. Well, I'm not saying you didn't grow up in gangs and violence, but like black neighborhoods. So what's your viewpoint on it then?
Yeah. For me, I have a great viewpoint, and I don't mean that to be facetious or to be egotistical. I have a great viewpoint because I grew up as both. So, as I said, for the first 14 years, I thought I was white. I was surrounded by white values, Caucasian values, and all the rest of that. And then there came and even though a home was majority black, the members of staff, all different shapes and sizes, were some from Jamaica, teaching me Jamaican history. Some from Africa, teaching me African history. And the food that we're eating and all the rest of that, depending on the member of staff that was on that particular part of the day, would determine the music, the food that we ate, the types of conversation that we'd have around the dinner table. So, I really began to understand what that looked like. Going to Waltham Forest College and failing, and then being around all black people and saying, like, whoa, what is this? And then I began to understand that I'm actually a black guy, right? Through the whole way. And even though I had black friends on the way up, that intensified all of it, And so then, paraphrasing and fast forwarding, meeting my father again some years ago and then tapping into my history. As I mentioned to you before, in my history as a Jamaican Maroon are the people that transformed the American Civil Rights Movement. Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey.
Very cool.
Martin Luther King. Incredible people, man. Colin Powell. Like, there's so many Jamaican Maroons around that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And so and then I suffered from racism, but then every black person has.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But from the age of around 20 something, maybe 23, 24, I haven't suffered from racism ever again. Now, does that mean that racism doesn't exist? Absolutely not. It exists, but it's about how I choose to be with it, right?
How you react to it.
Be with it, yeah. But you see, when you kind of understand how the mind works, and you understand that you create your own reality, and about how you respond to things, then you get a different picture of what shows up in your life, of what you attract and what you don't attract anymore, right? So then coming around to your question, and I did a podcast on this as well. So to paraphrase that, probably the easiest way for me to say it is like this, attention has to happen for something to come to our attention. Okay? So however it comes to our attention, it comes to our attention. Once it comes to our attention, it then becomes about our intention.
Of course.
Right? So those two things are very closely aligned. So attention, intention. So when it comes to black people, like, again, as I said, we've all faced racism, all of us, no doubt about it. So there is an injustice there that has been perpetuated for years, that needs to be addressed, no doubt about it. So while there is the attention, now it comes back down to the intention. So now, when we have a whole bunch of people in the world being shown what's going on, like, there's no more cognitive dissidence, meaning you can't believe what you're seeing, and you're kind of in shock.
Yeah.
Once you get through that, and you realize that people are treated differently on the color of their skin, and you can see it, then comes your intention. Now, what do you intend to do now? Right? So then this is where it becomes very interesting, because if the intention is that all lives matter, and this kind of goes back to it now, then what that's about is that if all lives matter, then black lives matter too. In other words, you can't treat anyone differently if all lives do in fact matter. So this goes for blacks, Egyptians, Greeks, Persians, you name it. It's just right now we're talking about blacks.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's true for all of us, for all different races, right? So then, when we get to that understanding of what our intention is, then it comes down to action. So if people really want to take action, then it comes down to the person that you see in the mirror every morning. So I mentioned 100 Years' War before, so it comes down to the person you see in the morning in the mirror, because the change always starts with you, right? The change starts with you. So at the end of the day, one of my best keynotes is called Man in the Mirror. And what it is about the waking up of realizing what shows up in your world is what is within you, right? Because the outside world is a reflection of what's inside.
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
So if we acknowledge that, then what is your intention? If your intention is that all lives matter, then what is your action?
Yeah.
And the action starts with you. So it may be that you're in a position of power, you have a business, and you look at a whole bunch of different people that want to get a job with you, right? So now you look at everybody and you hire them based upon their merits, not the color of their skin.
Yeah.
For example, that's one action. For each person is a different action potentially.
Yeah.
For another person, it could be that, at school, their kid is going to a school and there's a black kid at school and people, are like avoiding them because they don't know them, they don't understand them. Maybe it's taking the time to say, hey, Johnny, have a chat to George.
Yeah.
Just have a chat to him,
Yeah, exactly.
Find out what he likes, what he doesn't like, what lights him up, what pisses him off, what makes him happy, what his life's like at home. Ask him a question like you would anyone else. So again, I'm not pretending to know what the answer is, but what I can say is that with attention comes an intention. With that intention has to be followed by an action. Now, I'm not a person who condones violence. I've been very violent in my life. Yeah. I've had violence committed against me too. Yeah. Right? So I'm not condoning violence, but for some people, that's the way that they can externalize what's happening for them. Like if you go to South Africa, that whole, Nelson Mandela. Yeah. Amazing. What he did was amazing. He was able to allow people to vocalize what was going on for them. He was able to give people a stage to talk about what's happening. There's three types of listening. One is listening to interrupt. We've all done that and all do it. Another type of listening is listening to be cool, like I'm pretending to listen, right? And the third listen is called active listening. With active listening is that you're actually listening to hear what's being said and what's not being said, right? So now when you actively listen to someone, then they actually feel heard. It could be your girlfriend, it could be your wife, it could be your friend. When you really listen to somebody, they feel heard. When they feel heard, whatever's going on for them, 9% of the time is evacuated and it dissipates, right? So by Nelson Mandela doing what he did was really powerful because he gave people a chance to be heard and allow that energy to be dissipated. Because at the end of the day, anger, fear, love, it's an emotion, it's energy. That's what it is. At the end of the day, it's all energy. So. But for some people, that's not enough. So for them, it has to be physical, has to be violent, has to be action orientated. And at the end of the day, I understand the 100 Years' War. I understand the root of it, where it came from, why it happened. I had many racist attacks happen on me. One was really violent. It changed where I saw a lot of things. And that I go into my book, Soul Survivor. But because I understand it, and I have empathy, it takes a lot to really to wind me up. And like there's a bigger thing going on. There's a bigger play. All lives matter, Black Lives Matter. Yes, but there's also a bigger play that we're all part of, right? And at the end of the day, it's not about manipulating people. It's about giving yourself an opportunity to live the life that you want to live. That's a whole other conversation. But on this particular topic, yeah. So attention, intention, action, empathy. Listen because you actually want to know the answer. Don't listen because you're listening to either interrupt or you're listening because you know it's cool to listen and everyone's watching you, so you got to appear like you're listening, right? If you do that, nothing gets done. Nothing gets evacuated, nothing gets dissipated, nothing really gets addressed or heard. And if you do that, then this will just come back harder, stronger, and meaner than it did before. Because if you don't give people a chance to be heard the first time, the second time, the third time, they resort to violence.
Yeah. Well, it's like that strategy didn't work. He's not listening. I interviewed, it wasn't here, it was through Zoom. I don't know if you know the guy, Dr. Mark Goulston.
No, the name. I don't know.
He wrote the book, Just Listen. It used to be like he used to work for the FBI and do like hostage like negotiations and things like this. And on your point around listening, the 3 different stages of listening in your perception, it's interesting because I agree to the sense of you either create alternating monologues, or if you're listening and taking it in, you can create a dialogue, right, where you can appreciate each other and create a dialogue. I think a lot of people, especially relationships, like you said, whether it be children, business, whatever, there's this, I'll listen, but then I'm going to jump in with what I actually want to say. And then you create this alternating monologue, right? So fair play, good point. I like it. So with that, thanks for your perspective on all that, by the way. So jumping back to, again, 'cause I love kind of knowing someone's journey almost in this chronological order. So you were teaching windsurfing. Yeah. So how did you make your way into like modeling then?
Yeah, because that kid that was pulling himself apart was still pulling himself apart physically, was still at the effect of Caucasian values.
Yeah.
And for me, modeling was something that I fell into. And but what it was really was a pursuit of me trying to learn how to love myself.
Right.
Trying to learn how to accept myself in the way that I looked. So what I was thinking without thinking, was that, if I could do well in modeling, then that's validated that I look okay, that I look whatever it is, right? Acceptable. But the funniest thing is that, when I was working with all these supermodels, didn't feel that at all. I felt probably the worst I ever did. So funny enough, that didn't work.
Which is also a lesson that it's actually within yourself, right?
All within.
Yeah.
All within.
Yeah. Interesting. So, okay, so you go through, how long, many years did you model for, kind of thing? Or is it like a side thing?
Yeah, modeling was probably over a decade. Maybe.
Wow.
No, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
98, 96, 98. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you ever stop modeling, actually. It depends on how serious you are about it.
Yeah.
If we go for the serious part of it, that was probably a couple of years.
Yeah.
3 years. If you go for how long I was still doing stuff, it's a lot longer.
On the side, yeah. So, okay, so take me through more, again, on this entrepreneurial journey. So, then what inspired, say, like writing the book, your book, Soul Survivor? So was that just one day you're like, man, like I think there's a lot of people I can affect with my story, or what was the inspiration behind that then?
Yeah. So I've created this online course talking about the book, and it's called How to Turn Your Story into a Book. And for those who want to take it one step further, it's turn your story into a book and a 6-figure income. And I kind of go through how to basically, it's about branding. So partnered up with a great PR team, great company. And so the first part of it is about turning a story into a book. So I've created a methodology that uses your emotions, and you can write your book very, very fast. You can speed write it, actually. And so that's the part which I do. And the second part is about creating or maximizing or building your brand. And then from that, we turn that brand, we productize it. So in other words, it's like, when you become the acknowledged figurehead of your niche, you can monetize that through speaking engagements, through sponsorships, endorsements, and so on. So that's what we do. And my partners, they've got placement into tier 1, tier 2 magazines, publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur and Inc. and all the rest of that. Then we can also guarantee another one bestseller on Amazon as well. But going back to the question, of what inspired me to write my book, there's a few reasons behind it. So one is that, I was already an inspirational speaker. So it was a case of saying, well, look, the message which permeates everything which I do is the understanding of it's not where you start in your life, but where you're going. That's important. And what you learn about yourself along the journey, right? So that underpins everything which I do. And so the book was really an extension of the keynote I referred to earlier on called Man in the Mirror. And what it's about is exactly that. It's about the man in the mirror, Your life is an extension of the man that you see in the mirror, or the woman that you see in the mirror, right? It's not just about sex. So the reason why I wrote it was because, number one, it allowed that message to hit and penetrate more people.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it gave me a calling card for people that are looking to hire a speaker and so on. When you have a book that's published, especially by a well-known publisher as well, then it's like, okay, so this person knows what they're talking about.
Adds more credibility for sure.
Absolutely, it's a credibility play. So that was the second reason, yeah. And so New Holland Publishing and Soul Survivor, how an abandoned child went from nothing to everything.
Yeah,
is the name of it.
Nice. It's a nice title though as well.
Yeah. The first Soul Survivor was me.
Yeah.
Then I Facebook sourced the byline.
Yeah.
Which is a guy called Conrad. I can't pronounce his surname. Stefan Alzovitz.
Yeah.
He's going to hit me for pronouncing his name, for butchering his name like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks Conrad.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And it's interesting you kind of sharing that because maybe we'll have to talk later, maybe with the collaboration, because it's exactly at least one part of what I do is helping coaches and consultants, but it's more at the level of I guess you're positioning more self as that I don't teach them how to write the book or build the brand, well that's also a little part of it. It's more like building their marketing systems and Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff, that vertical, right? Because it's so interesting, you probably find this as well. So many coaches and consultants do a horrendous job at branding themselves, positioning themselves, and then they go on Facebook and in their profiles and write things like, I'm a spiritualpreneur, and it's just like, to their clients, they have no idea what they actually do or what they can help them with, or they'll try and sell like, I sell like 10 packages of this. And in some of my keynotes, I'll talk about like, your clients aren't walking around in society looking for, or think they even need a coach going, I think I need 10 sessions from a spiritualpreneur. They're going, I'm struggling with my divorce at the moment. I'm struggling with this guilt, the thing that I've done, right? So then it's teaching the coach or consultant how to language what you do into, I help blah, 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 right?
Wow.
So
I had no idea you did that, actually.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, that's me.
Yeah.
Like I'm still, again, I'm mastery, right?
Yeah.
So I believe in of just getting better every day.
Yeah.
Every day I get better, no matter what.
Yeah.
There's snakes and ladders. Some days it feels like I've gotten 3 times worse, but I come back always.
Of course, that's the journey though.
That is a journey.
Yeah.
And but yeah. So yeah. I'm sure we're going to chat later on because there's some crazy mistakes that I've made, still making, and all the rest of that. So it's interesting, but that's personal level.
Yeah.
But I've gotten so much better from where I was before, but there's still a fair way to go. But I'm definitely on.
And we're both young.
On the journey.
Especially being bald, we're even
I
more
know.
young.
and you know what? Thank God I work with a great PR company, and they've got all of that down pat. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. So now let's dive into more. So at school I was like terrible for academics. I also went into sports and played rugby at least first 15 at a high level, right?
Yeah.
But my love for like learning came after getting divorced at like 25, right? And it set me off on a massive like personal development journey. I'm still kind of on that journey of self-help. So because you've obviously had many of these highs and lows yourself, what's your look into? So to give you to frame it, I started off with went real deep on Tony Robbins, and then I outgrew Tony Robbins in the sense of not outgrew him, that sounds a bit arrogant, but outgrew him in the sense of he's a little bit more at the level of to the masses. And then I went deeper into human behavior through John DeMartini. I'm not sure if you know his stuff. Not so much Bob Proctor, but more around that vertical. So what about yourself? Do you have a high value on learning through certain mentors or certain people that have really helped, not gurus, but along your path that have helped you transform?
Yeah, I mean, I had a 20-year relationship, and in that a bit longer actually. And in that relationship, I was blessed enough to meet, gurus of all sorts of ways and means, from ascended masters spiritually, maybe 3 or 4 of those, entrepreneurs, high-level entrepreneurs, same number, including Robert Kiyosaki. Went quite deep with him. Names that pop up for me is a guy called Michael Rowland, who's Aussie.
Yeah.
And he's passed away recently, actually, which is sad. And he's an amazing guy. You know, for me, I there was a time where I was doing network marketing. So all those systems, well. Zig Ziglar, you know, your attitude, determines your altitude.
Yeah.
Like, for me, like, books, I read a lot of books now, but I still read. But I absorb it through YouTube and, you know, other ways now.
Yeah.
But the key thing for me was always about man in the mirror, was always about looking within, you know. So meditation for me was key early on, still is now. And I learned that all different types of people. You know, one was an ascended master called Nityananda, who's he's still alive, and he's a descendant of a guy called Muktananda, which is classical Indian meditation. You know, and that's probably my go-to, I would say. But it all revolves around the same thing, you know, which is having that inner dialogue, that conversation with yourself. But when it comes to like mentors and that, I mean, there's 20, 30 people. You know, like
totally.
There's a lot of different people. Yeah. Which are all great for what it was at the time when it was needed. You know, Gary Esther Hicks, you know, Michael Rowland, you know, there's John as well, D Martini. One of my good friends, don't see him so much now, is you know, publisher. He's Hay House.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Leon Naxon.
Right.
Yeah, the Naxon family, and they've built a massive empire now. And you know, during his 20-year relationship, he was extremely charitable towards us, and he's a good friend of my girlfriend's mum. And you know, when any of his authors came through, which was all the people that he mentioned, right, we would get tickets to go and see them. You know, Landmark Forum is probably one of the most
Landmark,
one of the most incredible courses for the money that I've ever done. You know, and I've done quite a few. Yeah. Some high.
I've never done Landmark, but they'll say we're just walking around as meaning-making machines, right? Like, give it everything a meaning.
Yeah. I mean, look, like Landmark Forum is phenomenal. Yeah. You know, like it's phenomenal. Yeah. You know, like that created an insight within me that's still there. You know, so there's so many defining moments and insightful situations that came about, but the common thread that brings them all together is that look within. You know, look within.
Reflection. Yeah, I found that.
And get to know it.
Yeah, there's one, and I think you touched on it nicely, or at least I think you do it, is, I got this from John, but you know, what you see in others, you couldn't see it if it wasn't within yourself. Yeah. Both positive or perceived positive and negative, meaning if you're judging someone the way they are, you've disowned it within yourself, right? So I found that very powerful to kind of take it, let it sit on it, and then you get used to, like, if someone walking down the street or whatever, or if you're in a dialogue, or you're in a conversation with someone, you're judging something, you can kind of go, oh, hold on a minute, I know that's with myself, I'm judging or disowning it, deflecting it, to then go, okay, where have I done that? Meaning if I'm judging a trait, like, oh, they're so aggressive, and where have I been aggressive, right? So that I found that very powerful. To switch another gear, seeing as we're in Bali, how did
switch
you?
Those gears, brother.
Yeah, how long have you actually been in Bali for?
This time around, 3 years roughly. First time I got here was 20-something years ago. Okay, but that was more for an extended holiday.
Okay, so this is the first 3 years is being based here more one time, right? So what brought you back here to be like, you know, I want to base myself here?
Sydney was just becoming out of our reach, and it's a place that I love Sydney. Yeah. But it was a place that wasn't making sense for where me, Marina, my partner, who's born in Indonesia, Jakarta, and our two kids, which have got both passports, Australian, Indonesian, and they'll have English at some point. It didn't make sense for us anymore at that time, and it was actually Marina. My partner was like, you know what, you know, what about Bali? And I was like, yeah. The first time I came to Bali, the only other time I came to Bali, loved it. Going back to Bali, sure. You know, and within 3 months we had moved. Wow. Yeah, we're very much like yourself, action orientated people. Yeah. Right? So we don't waste time. You know, like if you want to do it, then let's just do it. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a fair share of collateral damage that can come with that too sometimes. So it's not always a perfect thing.
Yeah.
You know?
There's and what I've kind of picked up from you, and then just kind of other people that I know that know you, and I've also done the same. I think we can we go through life. It's almost like, I think Gary Vee talks about this a little bit, but it's just like taste as much as you can through life. Keep pivoting until you find you're like, okay, this is me. And some people will view that as, or they're unstable, they'll jump from thing to thing. And some people go, no, it's fantastic, because you can take a wide variety of connections, skills, whatever, and apply them to like, no, this is what feels like home, right? So I kind of applaud you for that. That's kind of like you've gone from this and this to be like, all right, I'm going to package and put all these into, now I really want to do this. So with that said, what's your kind of your vision going forward now? So I know you mentioned you like what feels like home at the moment is helping people, you know, pull the story out of them and getting them to write their own book and grow their own income. Is that the main focus that you're wanting to build something off, or is that just a side project? Or
look, if I pretend to know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, I'll be lying to myself. So I focus on shorter increments of time. Where it's at for me is that there's a good friend, Philip. He's a Ram Dass guy. Which is like, follow your bliss, you know. And in many ways, I believe that too. You know, follow the things that light you up. And what I've noticed with me is that, you know, this thing about, I have this natural ability to be able to pull things out of people. Not even pull, they volunteer it. And able to see things, join things, connect things, and then give that back to people in a way that they can also see something for themselves. So based upon that, you know, what I'm doing now is completely aligned to it. You know, the SpeakuP Monday, which is a platform which, it's all bootstrapped. You know, it's a platform which is a guy called Morten Haag, and he's a Viking from Norway. And you know, funny story there. And you know, it's like, mate, you got a cafe called Life in Bali. You're like, you're a speaker. Yeah, why aren't you doing speakers here? It's like, that's a good idea. And I took that idea and then just blew it up, you know. And now we've been going for like, we're up to number 59. Monday. I actually still don't know who's gonna speak, but because we're working on this project in Uluwatu at the moment. But you know, like, I roll with it, right? I've got 4 people which I know I can draw from. But anyway, work that out. But on this one there, you know, like, people just put their hands up. So one of the guys is, you know, Mikey Moran, who's obviously is a co-founder of Gojek, which is huge company. So we just speak up with him. He's a great guy.
Where's he from? Is he Jakarta?
Yeah. And then on the other Indonesian front, 2 girls, Matilda Dwi Lestari, Didi, climbing partner, the first 2 Indonesian women to climb the 7 highest mountains on the planet, including Everest. You know, she's been on it twice. And then a whole bunch of other people, coaches, speakers, riders, business.
I saw you had Adrian on last week.
Yeah.
I want to get him on this show. He's a character right here.
Ada was last week, but we got a bit of a history, and you know, and we're doing something together in Uluwatu as we speak. But it's but you know, like, and then that lends itself, you know, with a book it's the same thing. You're pulling out insights from people, and the beauty about what you're doing now, the beauty about a book is that, you know, we're living in an age now where things can be manipulated, one way or the other, right? When you write a book, when I've got it in my hands physically, I read exactly what you intended me to read. What we're doing now, you know, what I'm saying, one way or the other, is exactly what I intend to say. So whoever's listening to this, whoever does listen to this, it's never going to be manipulated or amended, you know, down to the little that we do as well, right? That's how it is. That's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing. my life is working its way towards my ancestors. I've mentioned Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. I've always had a feeling it's going that way. You know, will it ever reach there? I don't know. You know, but it's going that way. You know.
Yeah.
And the more that I travel, and now uncovering that history, I spoke to another Jamaican who I'll be working with pretty soon, and this woman in Jamaica is famous. You know, but this is a powerful woman, man. Like when she talks, you listen. You know.
Orator. Have you heard much of Les Brown?
Oh yeah, Les Brown's awesome.
What an orator he is.
You know,
Yeah.
but this woman, you know, Les has got that tone and
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And we've got that too.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about. With her, she's a woman who doesn't even need to raise her voice.
Yeah.
And she will give it to you, and you listen.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah.
Very powerful woman. So for me, in answering your question in a very roundabout way, like, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm doing now, and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it, and I'll do it for as long as I'm feeling it, and as long as I see the value in doing it, which I believe is going to be for the rest of my life. Right? I'm always going to be doing this. I've always been doing it. Right?
Yeah.
You know, then the other things which I'm doing, because I'm very entrepreneurial. There's lots of other different projects which I've gotten to boil. Ultimately, for me, it's always been about. I have an incredible network of friends and acquaintances and so on, and it's always been about finding ways to not only bring that together in a way that things are created in a very powerful way that assists, support, and empower a lot of people, but also, yes, there's a monetizing aspect to that as well. So it's working out, because again, you know, we live in planet Earth. There's some things we need to pay for, even here in Bali. So it's working out ways which that can happen ethically as well.
Fair exchange.
You know,
yeah.
You know, as we know, you know, back in the day, you know, the father of the self-development movement, you know, was about which service can I render, and as a result of me rendering to that service, to the ability in which I'm able to render that service to the amount of people I'm able to render that service to is commensurate to what I receive in return.
Yeah. But it's funny that well, not funny you touch on it, but interesting you touch on that, because it's like, again, something that I see a lot within coaches and consultants, and this comes down to also charging their perceived fair price. Because a lot of people, they get into coaching and consulting, or they've been in it, when people go, how do I charge for it? It's totally like, let me just pull a number out, right? And because it's like, one way of doing it is like looking at who's in the market and what the price is at the moment for what you perceive to be delivered. But touching on back to what you're doing with branding and putting this book out, so much of what I've seen now is like, it's the perception that people have about you and wanting to be around you, they'll pay a certain price. Meaning, like, so for example, in a session with John, right, DiMartini is 3,000, right? Of course, he's very knowledgeable and very excel with what he does. However, you're also paying, or people are also paying for a perceived level of like certainty that they're going to get a result, but also being in his presence, right? So I think also the bit that gets missed within coaches and consultants, probably you know, is building their brand so they have the perception that they are this, because then you can also charge, right? Some people might look at that and go, oh, that's unethical or this or that, but again, people love to be known, people love to be drawn towards status, you know, if you're going back to like drivers of human behavior. So I think we'll definitely be able to collaborate in kind of some way kind of going forward, but yeah, very interesting times for sure.
And that's a great point, you know, like, you know, as I said, I'm launching this course, and, you know, on the way I've got people hitting me up. It's like they're coming out the woodwork, you know. I've got four calls to make today, tomorrow. Yeah. And, you know, and I'm confident that they'll come on board.
So is this a book that it's an autobiography, or in what way? Like, is that okay? Cool. So it's like anyone that's wanting to share their story, but I bet, sorry for butting in, I bet that I'm sure, almost certain that people, the first thing they're going to know is, yeah, but people won't want to listen to my story. Why am I special? Why do people want my story?
Yeah. So look, who I kind of target So there's two things, right? There's who you target and who targets you. Right? Who I'm targeting is like successful entrepreneurs, identities, and self-development leaders. That's the area that I focus on. What am I getting? Kind of getting that. Like that's that they fall into those three categories.
Yeah, well, that makes more sense. It's not just Joe Blog; it's people that have established something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the offspring of that is that the technology is there for anyone who wants to write a book. You can use it. Maybe you won't do one-on-one with me, unless you got that income, or you want to invest that type of money. But then you probably would take, like all the free content I'm putting out there, or you would take the course that I put out there. But you wouldn't do the one-on-one. For example, because on a certain level, all of us have got a story.
Yeah.
And we can all learn from each other. And growing up in a kid's home, I learned from everyone.
Yeah.
What to do, and what not to do.
Yeah.
I learned from everyone, as I still do now.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes me empathetic is that. I believe I can learn something from everybody. And I still believe that, right? So I'm always learning.
And what's your kind of expanding on that? Always learning. Have you gone deep into like either Russell Brunson or Sam Ovens?
Sam Ovens, funny you should mention that name. Look, Russell Brunson there's a little bit more coming that way. Sam Ovens, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
You chuckle. Why is that? Sam Ovens.
Oh, mate. Why do I chuckle? The accent. Because you're both from the same place.
Yeah.
Right. That would be the first reason.
Yeah.
And the second reason is that he's such a polarizer.
Yeah.
And there's some people who really, really like him, and some people who really don't.
Yeah.
And what do I see? I see a guy who's done phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And good on him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I see.
People certainly do love him or hate him. I mean, he certainly fits more into. I asked that because curious to know around that, because those have probably been when it comes to branding, marketing, advertising. I've read many books around that. Like, I don't know, Ryan Levesque, Ask Method, Story Brand by Donald Miller. But those are probably the two that I've gone the deepest with. So hence why I kind of sets up the conversation we might have later, because those are the two that I've gone deepest in as far as building a brand, building a movement through Russell. And then Sam's all like analytical as shit, right? Like down to the very science of cause and effect. This does this, then into Facebook ads and into delivery. So yeah, that'll be something cool that we can kind of look at.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, it's inspiring to hear, again, your story and how you've kind of been able to kind of glue it all together. But one thing that I admire about you to kind of finish with is I love to plan, and I love to like, this is my vision, this is where I want to kind of go. Yeah. Sometimes I will go, right, this is my plan in 10 years, and then that gets too overwhelming because I focus on it. So I think you've done a good job with going like, I focus being on the present, and I focus on what I'm going to do, say, in the next 6 months, 1 year. And you don't also, what it seems like you don't judge yourself or, I might do this now, but I might stop and pivot to something else, because it doesn't stop you in this fear of paralysis by analysis. You'll just do it, learn from it, move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is it's a skill in itself.
I mean, Michael Rowland had this thing called a life right, and it's a way for you, to look forward over the next year of your life and plan what you're going to do as though it's already happened. That whole programming suggestion, that. And I did that. I loved doing that. I did it for years. Some years it worked out exactly as I wrote. Some years it didn't. But in general, it worked more times than what it didn't work. And and there's still things which are programs that I get into. Sometimes it's like, give me a 20-year plan, and I kind of put a few things down, on what I would like. I do have a vision on the kind of place I'd like to live, the house I'd live in, where that would be here in Bali, and the kind of thing that I'll be doing. So that's out there. But where I tend to focus is on what am I doing now to get to that. So it's like 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years is probably as far as I'll probably go right now.
Yeah.
And but again, it's, life is amazing.
Yeah.
And, like there are things that come up, so as I said, I'm in Uluwatu at the moment for a little bit. Well, I live here, but I'm kind of going up and down from there a couple of times. Next month I'm going to be there a bit. And so there's just opportunities come, and I will probably be the one who I'm probably doing too many things. And I need to focus more. And that's what I'm doing, the online. I'm actually focusing into a product that can be marketed and all of that, which is great. First time I've done that. Even though I've been going with this knowledge, I've been relationship coaching for a long time as well. And so it's interesting, So, but all of it, again, just for me, it comes back like that thread is, it's like not where you're from, it's where you're going and which direction are you going. And what I'll leave you with is that there's what I call 3 pillars of purpose, right? And so the first pillar, and none is better or worse than the other. I've been through all of them, and maybe I'll go through all of them again. I don't know. We'll see. But the first pillar of purpose is having no purpose. And that's treating every day like it's your last day and grabbing every experience, seeing the good in everything that you do. This was an experience for me where it was like taking off the glass ceiling of my limitations and just going for it. Playing basketball for England, becoming a model, working with Naomi Campbell, working with all these other. That was me. I was not planning for anything to do in the future. I was just like living in the moment right now. Loved it. Another one, second bit, is being pushed by. So being pushed by is saying, I grew up poor. I don't want to be poor anymore. Right? So I'm going to go out, I'm going to build myself up, I'm going to learn what I need to learn, I'm going to do what I need to do to be rich. So I'm being pushed away from the thought of being poor. I don't want that anymore. And that motivates and inspires me to do X. And the third pillar is about being pulled toward or being inspired by. And that's probably more about where I am right now. But again, it's not about judging. No one's better or worse. It's just different places to be and a powerful place to stand. So being pulled by is that, you're in a place of relaxation or in a place of doing something that you love to do and you enjoy, and something drops in your head. Maybe you see something on TV, if you watch TV, and it just moves you in such a way, it's like, I need to do something about this. And you are available to do it. Right?
But it's even like, and I agree with what you're saying, a lot of those moments come up, whether it be like listening to some music or something, or seeing something done or experiencing, but to write down those moments because as soon as you've written down 2, 3, 5, 10 of these moments, you start to find a bit of a pattern and a trend to like, this is what's like I'm obviously being inspired or pulled towards, but then knowing how to take action on what that is, what that looks like. And that's when a coach comes in, right? To kind of give direction. And I think that's when anyone that kind of reaches out to you, because, they might listen to you now and go, man, he's done so much. I'm a bit confused. What does he do? I think it's better that if someone's likes the sound of everything that you're doing, to reach out. And that's where these discovery calls or whatever comes to kind of go, look, I don't think I can help you with this. Let me direct you to this resource, or bro, it's exactly what I'm doing now. Let me do this, right? Which I think that you'll be a great resource for, to kind of go, look, I can't help you with this, but I know the perfect person for that. Or, hey, let's catch up. I'll do a strategy session with you to get X, Y, and Z, whatever, right? So where do people kind of reach out to you? Yeah,
I'm kind of everywhere at the moment in terms of, media. So Robert Ian Bonnick.
Yeah.
So Robert Ian Bonnick, Bonnick.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's Instagram, Facebook. They've got inspirational speaker page.
Yeah.
Website, same one, robertianbonnick.com.
Okay.
So that one's out there as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And is there any last words that you want to share with the listeners before we?
Yeah. So there's a beautiful story, true story, and this kind of sums me up in a way. Girl reached out to me from one of the podcasts I was doing, like an interview I was doing, and reached out and said, "Look, Rob, for some reason I'm drawn to you, and I'm in a position right now. There's like a fork in the road. Is there something? Can we catch up? And she happens to be here as well. I said, yeah, sure. Because so many people have guided and helped and supported and assisted me in all ways, emotionally, financially, mentally, spiritually, physically, always. So 3 rules I live by: never forget where I'm from, never forget help me to get to where I am today, and always give back where I can, and without any expectation of getting something back in return from that person. And there's still people that I owe things to. So so like I'm still also moving forward, but I never forget, right? So we caught up, and basically, this white light thing, which I think I mentioned earlier on about, so I get into a state before I coach, before I go anywhere, do anything, which involves other people. What I do is that I'll meditate very quickly, or 3 deep breaths, full body breaths out. I'll sit down, white light comes down. This is what I imagine. White light's coming down over me. And it's not a religious thing, but I say, look, please God, help me to be the best I can be for this person, or please help me to give the best I can for this group, or please help me to pass on. So I'm a vessel, right? And I've always had this ability. So I sat down with this girl, and we spoke within, and I just get messages all the time, like just pop in. And I was just not pushing it, but just letting her know things along the way. And this one exercise came in. It's called the 3 5s, which is basically take a sheet of paper, 5 or 10, things you love to do. List them down, and then 5 skills, 10 skills that you have, your superpowers, or things you can easily upskill to. Write them down, and then way ahead of me. The last one is combine those in an activity which you can monetize. And I just had this intuitive sense that that's what I need to do with her. I don't plan. It just comes. And same as with any keynote which I do, I never plan it. It comes when it comes. Right? It's really frustrating sometimes for some people. So what happens is, so we did this exercise. Now, a week later, I get a message back from her saying, look, thank you so much for meeting up. Just want to tell you what's happened, right? And then she goes to tell me that she did the exercise, and out of it has come this career, action, movement, and she's doing it, and she's now like in her powering, right? Straight down, right? Straight through, and she's loving it, and that's the thing which I love to do.
Yeah, especially when you're, as a coach though, when you're giving an advice or giving something and people take action, because it's like, that's one of the most frustrating things. I think, I guess as a coach, not to be attached to the outcome of your clients, but when you get someone that fulfills or takes what you're saying and implements it, is probably the most fulfilling part about being a coach. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. So thanks again for coming on the show. And I think I reached out to both Adrian, or through Mark, and Chris Duffy. Chris Duffy's going to be a fantastic... Duffy? Is that his last name? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sounds pretty good.
And so thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, and whoever's listening to this, mate, Ben, you're doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
A fellow bald head with a slightly different accent to me. But you have a great way of. This is great, like giving people the opportunity to come and speak, and to uncover, some of the things that make them tick in a way that people can grasp, and the things that they can try and get. Because I think we're all inspired by other people, right? And in a room of 10 people, 2 people with an identical message, right? People respond to them differently based on how they look, how they appear. We relate to people differently, So what I love about what you're doing is that, like you're doing it your way, and it's got a distinctive you touch to it, course. And obviously it's having a great amount of success, and people are enjoying it and loving it, and being on this side of it, you have a great way of doing it. So thank you. Again,
a bit like you through Keynote. Nothing's planned. It's just like I know these questions that I need to get answered. So no, it's fantastic. Perfect. All right, we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Interview the Expat Bali edition. Thanks.